And what did she do with that job? She facilitated genocide. And how did she do that? One, there was a move in the Security Council in, I think it was 2015 or 2016, to investigate war crimes in Yemen. That, by the way, Obama was already facilitating. Obama began helping Saudi Arabia in this brutal war in Yemen. And because this was Obama's war in part, Samantha Power, as ambassador to the UN, made sure that that resolution to investigate war crimes in Yemen was tabled and not passed. Is that incredible? The woman who literally wrote the book on genocide. The other thing she did, she was part of the cabal of herself and Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice, who pushed for the NATO invasion of Libya. And she did so on the claim that we had to go there to stop a genocide. Though in retrospect, or even at the time, many people saw there was no evidence that a genocide was going to be carried out. But a genocide did happen in Libya. And it happened because of the Obama administration. And how did that happen? So, amongst other lies that the administration, particularly Hillary Clinton, told to justify the invasion of Libya, was that Muammar Gaddafi was working with black mercenaries in his offensive against the Libyan people. This was a lie, which Amnesty International would eventually, though too late, admit was a lie. They said, no, these aren't black mercenaries. These are migrant workers who live in Libya that actually Gaddafi allowed to live there. They weren't mercenaries. Interestingly, the press said you could tell, based on what Clinton was saying, you could tell who the mercenaries were by their yellow hard hats. Yeah, they were construction workers. But what happened was, not only did this lie become a pretext for a war which has created a failed state in Libya, but because the U.S. Vilified the so-called black mercenaries in Libya, the jihadists that Obama supported to overthrow Gaddafi, as they took power and after they took power, went around and started jailing and killing and displacing black people in Libya. There was a genocide that was carried out in Libya, and it happened with the encouragement of the very people who said they were there to protect human rights. To me, there is no better example of the failure and the lie of humanitarian interventionism. And as Roger mentioned, and I'll just say that as an international law professor, in what I want to write in this textbook is that, by the way, humanitarian interventionism is contrary to the UN Charter in international law. The UN Charter was written after World War II to prevent war and to prevent aggressive interventions. And why? Because the judges at Nuremberg realized, quite correctly, that all of the crimes that Hitler carried out, he was able to carry out because of his aggressive wars. Where were the death camps?
Poland.
They were in Poland. They weren't in Germany.
Oh, that's not true.
But, well, they were the big ones anyways. And the work camps. The point is, he could not have carried out the mass extermination of the Jews in Europe unless he was invading other countries. And so those who created the UN Charter, their first goal was to prevent war, which they saw as the main threat to human rights in the world. And yet that has now been turned on its head. Now people who are interested in human rights largely believe that if you want to support human rights, or if the U.S. wants to support human rights, it does so by bombing other countries. And this is not an exaggeration. You might recall that when there was this at least alleged chemical attack in Syria, shortly after Trump was inaugurated, he bombed Syria. And this was the one time that people, including liberals, believed he was acting presidential.